Welcome to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram's Immigration News Show. Today we ask, why does America need STEM talent? We would like to thank attorney Chris M. Ingram and staff at the law offices of Chris M. Ingram for their hard work in preparing the research for this show, which draws on a wide variety of news sources from both sides of the aisle, providing a balanced view. Attorney Ingram is also a vocal advocate for the rights and protection of immigration applicants, although our coverage is designed to be nonpartisan. Please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our channel. We are also on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Reddit, and Instagram, where we're growing rapidly thanks to our social media team. You can also visit our website on www.breakthroughusa.com. We'd love to see you there. Disclaimer. Please note that this presentation should not be intended as legal advice for your specific situation. If you, a friend, or a family member would like a free consultation, you can visit our website at www.breakthroughusa.com and schedule an appointment. We'd love to hear from you and help you if we can. We'd also like to point out that this presentation was created using AI hosts. Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah. It is great to be here for this.
It really is. So we are doing a deep dive today into some incredibly detailed legal research prepared by attorney Chris Ingram and our legal team. And, our mission here is really to cut through all the political noise.
Right, because there is a lot of it right now.
There's just so much. But we want to decode the actual mechanical policy changes that are completely reshaping high-skilled immigration. Because how the U.S. manages its visa system right now, it's directly impacting its position in this global war for talent.
Oh, absolutely. And to really understand the stakes for you, the listener, we have to look at the gatekeepers,
Sure.
Right? We're talking about the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and the Department of State.
The big three.
Exactly. They are implementing these highly technical policies that honestly fundamentally alter who gets to stay in the United States. It's not just theory anymore.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the most significant shift highlighted in the research from our team is this new weighted H-1B selection rule.
Yes, that is a massive one.
It really is. It just became effective on February 27th, 2026, specifically for the fiscal year 2027 registration cycle. And I want to make sure we, clearly explain how this actually works for people.
Well, under the old system, the H-1B was essentially a blind lottery.
Right. Like every registration submitted just had a mathematically equal chance of being selected.
Exactly. It didn't matter what the job was or, frankly, what it paid. If you had a valid job offer requiring a bachelor's degree, your ticket went into a giant digital hat. It was just pure statistical chance.
Wow. Okay. But the new weighted rule completely throws that out the window.
It discards it entirely. Now, the algorithm takes all those registrations and explicitly ranks them based on the Department of Labor wage levels.
Okay, so it's less like a blind lottery now and more like a VIP club, right? Or maybe a silent auction where the bouncer only hands out bidding paddles to the absolute wealthiest people in the room.
That is a very apt way to look at it, yeah. The system heavily prioritizes what they call level 4 and level 3 wages. So that's the highest end of the compensation spectrum for any given occupation.
And it just actively works its way down from there.
Right. And if the annual quota gets filled by the time it reaches those lower wage levels, well, those remaining registrations are simply out of luck.
Wait, I need to push back on this for a second. Because if the stated goal of the government is to fill critical shortages in the STEM workforce, why would these agencies design a rule that exclusively prioritizes the most expensive workers?
That's a great question.
I mean, that seems completely counterproductive to building a diverse ecosystem of companies. What is the logic there? And remember, we're just reporting what the policymakers claim here.
Right. Impartially speaking, their stated logic was often to prevent the undercutting of domestic wages. They wanted to ensure the H-1B program is used for the quote-unquote best and brightest, basically equating a high salary with high value.
But the legal research we reviewed points to a really severe unintended consequence of that, doesn't it?
Oh, severely. What's fascinating here is that it fundamentally alters employer behavior. It ties a candidate's legal future entirely to pure financial leverage.
And we actually have the hard numbers on that financial leverage. The Penn Wharton budget model projections from our team's research, they projected an 8.5% increase in average compensation for selected applicants under this new rule.
And an 8.5% jump nationwide. That is substantial. But, you have to look at the flip side of that.
Right, the drop-off.
Exactly. That increase corresponds with a massive, severe drop in selections for lower wage positions.
Yeah.
So the macroeconomic effect is that a giant tech conglomerate with billions in cash can just easily inflate a candidate's wage to hit that level 4 tier.
Thus guaranteeing the visa. While, the scrappy little startup that's trying to build the next big thing on a shoestring budget is completely locked out.
Precisely. They might be doing far more innovative work, but if they can't afford that level 4 premium, their talent gets deported.
Wow. It really turns it into a financial arms race.
Yeah.
But even if an employer can afford to win that silent auction, the administrative hurdles to prove they qualify are just steeper than ever.
Oh, they are punishingly steep.
Yeah. In immigration law, just a single clerical error, like a messed up organizational account, can literally end your life in the U.S. before anyone even reads your petition.
It happens every day.
It's terrifying. And I want to ask you, the listener, directly, think about your own situation. Which of these massive policy mechanics is impacting your life the most right now? Is it the weighted wage rules, the strict new forms, or maybe the agonizing visa bulletin dates?
I suspect for a lot of people listening, it's the unforgetting nature of the paperwork. Our researchers highlighted a strict new timeline that leaves zero margin for error.
Let's get into those dates.
So the new Form I-129 edition was released on February 27th, 2026, and the government made it strictly mandatory on April 1st, 2026.
Meaning, if an employer accidentally uses the old version of the form on, say, April 2nd,
the case is tossed out, outright rejected. And this new form demands exhaustive, granular detail about the company's structure and exactly how the applicant's college coursework applies to their daily duties.
And they are charging a premium for this perfection, too. We saw premium processing fees hike up significantly on March 1st, 2026.
Yeah, that hit the I-129 and certain employment-based I-140 petitions hard.
But I want to pivot here, because beyond the fees and the forms, we have to talk about the Department of State's March 2026 Visa Bulletin. Because this is where the cold mechanics meet the profound human element. Can you explain what the Visa Bulletin actually does for those who might not know?
Certainly. It's essentially a monthly waiting list. Congress placed strict annual limits on employment-based green cards, and they capped the percentage that can go to any single country at just 7%.
Ah, so if you are from a country with a massive STEM workforce, like India or China, you hit that 7% cap immediately.
Instantly. And this creates backlogs that can stretch for decades.
Yeah.
The Visa Bulletin dictates whose place in line is currently eligible to actually file for their green card.
Which means these aren't just dates on a spreadsheet for you, the applicant. These represent frozen lives.
Absolutely. You could be an exceptional engineer, fully approved for residency on paper, but you are stuck in a holding pattern.
Right, you can't safely change jobs because you might have to restart the whole labor certification process. You hold off on buying a house or getting married because your entire life is tied to one employer while you wait in a decades-long line.
The psychological toll of that is just immense. You live your life in 30-day increments, hoping a government bulletin moves in your favor.
Which is why the strategic takeaway from our legal team is just so vital right now. In the research, attorney Chris Ingram shared some advice that really grounds this whole discussion.
Oh, I know the quote you're talking about.
Yeah, he says, policy can change quickly, but preparation still creates stability. The people who understand their options, keep strong records, and build more than one possible pathway are usually in the best position when the system changes.
That is the anchor here. You can't control the algorithms or the State Department backlogs, but you can control your own paper trail and build contingency plans.
Right. But okay, let's zoom out from the individual applicant for a second. What happens to the United States when this bureaucratic system becomes too volatile?
The domestic talent pipeline starts to crack.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the sheer scale of the U.S. STEM workforce. According to the National Science Foundation's 2023 data from our legal research, that workforce is 36 million strong.
Which is roughly 25% of the entire U.S. workforce. It's the engine of the economy.
It is, and 22% of that entire STEM workforce is foreign-born. We are talking about nearly a quarter of the people designing our infrastructure and coding our cybersecurity.
This raises an important question. What happens locally when you disrupt a pipeline of that size? It hits specific communities incredibly hard.
Yeah, our attorneys pointed to a March 3rd, 2026 Reuters report about Florida's public universities. They had to temporarily halt the hiring of new foreign faculty members through the H-1B program until January 5th, 2027.
So why did you choose the law offices of Chris M. Ingram as your attorney?
Honestly, they made it feel like I was never on my own.
Every time I had a question, someone actually answered. They cared.
We never felt alone. The videos felt like we had someone with us the whole way. Every form, every question, they had a video that explained it.
It made the process so easy.
Our tutorials are designed to get you over the finishing line, and after watching them, you are reassured that you have completed that section correctly.
At the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, our mission is to support you. Our instructional videos will guide you every step of the way. So join us.
Think about that in the context of the weighted wage rule. Public universities are on fixed state budgets. When the federal algorithm demands level 4 wages to win a visa, a public university simply cannot compete with a private tech firm.
They just get priced out of the talent market entirely. And the fallout from that, Reuters noted that over 600 potential beneficiaries are affected. That's graduate students losing mentors, federal grants stalling out. It stops research before it even begins.
And it hits the students directly, too. The research from our team included a NASA report showing a devastating fall 2025 enrollment weakness for international students.
I read that. A $1.1 billion loss to the economy.
Yes, and nearly 23,000 lost jobs from that singular dip. And NASA explicitly pointed out that these international students are the very people who traditionally found U.S. startups valued at $1 billion or more.
We are essentially locking out the founders of tomorrow's unicorns before they even take their freshman seminar. It's wild.
Which brings us to a really harsh reality. If these brilliant minds are shut out of the U.S., where do they go? They don't just give up.
No, rival nations are aggressively rolling out the red carpet. The legal research analyzed reports from Reuters from late 2025 showing Canada, South Korea, the UK, Germany, and China explicitly exploiting U.S. visa policy changes.
Let's use this scenario from the research to put a face on this. Dave versus Mary.
Oh, this is a great example.
Dave works for a huge, wealthy tech corporation. With the new weighted rule and the fee hikes, his employer just absorbs the cost and inflates his salary to level 4. He gets his visa easily. Dave is insulated by corporate wealth.
But then you have Mary. And Mary is just as brilliant as Dave. Maybe she's developing AI for medical diagnostics, but she works for an early-stage startup.
Right. And her employers simply cannot afford to artificially inflate her salary to hit those new wage weights. So Mary is shut out.
But Mary doesn't just stop inventing things. She looks north. Canada has rolled out new federal funding and targeted immigration reforms specifically to lure top global researchers who are frustrated by the U.S.
So she takes her brilliance to Toronto.
Exactly. And we are seeing the hard data on this brain drain. Look at the Max Planck Society in Germany. Based on their May 2025 data, applications from U.S. women scientists tripled. They jumped from 25 to 81 in a single year.
Now, a skeptic might hear that and say, well, maybe that's just a global trend. Maybe European science programs are just becoming more popular.
I would push back on that, and so did Max Planck President Patrick Kramer. He explicitly noted that applications from other parts of the world remain entirely constant. It was not a global trend. The spike was isolated to applicants fleeing the United States specifically. It is the conditions in the U.S. that are pushing this top-tier talent away.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the long-term cost of losing Mary is staggering. When the U.S. rejects her over an administrative technicality, we permanently forfeit the innovation, the job creation, and the research she will generate for a competing economy.
We're basically subsidizing our global rivals.
No.
And the stakes for critical domestic industries are catastrophic.
Absolutely. The research included projections from the Semiconductor Industry Association and Oxford Economics. The U.S. semiconductor workforce needs 115,000 new jobs by 2030.
That's massive.
And roughly 67,000 of those jobs risk going completely unfilled without international talent. This is exactly what Mark A. Bartow and the National Academies warned about back in 2024. The U.S. completely lacks a whole-of-government strategy to retain global STEM talent.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the VIP club of the weighted rules, the strict forms, the visa bulletin freezing people's lives. We've seen Florida universities priced out and Canada and Germany scooping up our talent. Why does this matter so much to the future of America?
Well, the legal research really zeroes in on this.
It does, and I want to read attorney Chris M. Ingram's definitive answer from our team's research. He says, because innovation depends on people before it depends on policy. If the United States wants stronger research, more new companies, better healthcare, and real technological leadership, it has to remain a place where talented people from around the world can study, work, and build with confidence.
Building with confidence, that is key. And that echoes attorney Chris Ingram's final piece of advice for anyone listening who feels discouraged right now. He says, do not confuse delay with defeat. The future still belongs to people who refuse to stop preparing for it.
That is such a powerful takeaway. Before we go, consider this. If the next massive technological breakthrough, say, the algorithm that cures a major disease or the energy grid that solves the climate crisis, is invented 10 years from now, will it be built in a lab in Silicon Valley? Or will it be built in Toronto, London, or Berlin simply because a brilliant researcher's Form I-129 was rejected over a minor administrative technicality? Thank you so much for being with us today. We hope you gained a lot from this discussion. Please leave us a comment if you can. Additionally, you can support our channel by sharing it with your friends and family, helping us build this community together. Also, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram, where we're growing rapidly thanks to our social media team. We would also like to thank attorney Chris Ingram and his dedicated team once again for researching and preparing this material for our presentation. See you next time on Let's Talk U.S. Immigration. Bye for now.